Virgo. I was standing barefoot at the window the first time Meg's phone rang. The sun was rising, but from her loft, looking westward, all that could be seen was a feeble light seeping through the mist and the shadowy surface of the Hudson. It had only been a couple of hours since I'd returned from the party without her. I picked up Meg's black lacquer box from atop a stack of moving cartons and brought it back to her bed. Inside were several compartments where she kept various herbs and powders and pills. I drew out a small silver case containing her supply of codeine. I swallowed one of these, took a drink from the tap, and lay back down. I drifted off to sleep. When I awoke, the phone was ringing again, and the sharp edge of the box was pressing into my ribs. 3 days earlier, she'd called me in San Francisco. "You're up early," I said. It was about noon in New York. "He's in the other room," Meg said, whispering. "He hasn't slept in 3 days. I'm moving out." Her boyfriend, Bobby, was a coke dealer and was known to dip into supplies for the occasional vendor. "I've heard this before," I said. "I've already lined up a new place," she said, "but I need you here." It had been almost 3 years since Meg had left the Midwest to go back to New York, soon after I'd left for California. "Are you sure?" I said. "I'll feel pretty silly if I fly out there and you two get back together a week later." "He's going to be away for most of the day tomorrow," she said. "Are you crying?" I said. "He's got a new gun," she said. Her voice dropped lower. "He makes me carry it to him on a polishing cloth. Yesterday, he found a fingerprint on the chrome and flipped out." "Did he hit you?" I asked. "He pointed it at me," she said. I walked to the front window of the warehouse where I lived with 4 strangers. They were all asleep. A man with a shopping cart was picking through the trash cans at the curb. "I don't know how long I could stay," I said. "I'll get you an open ticket," she said. "Stay as long as you like." "We're going to do something with that moving truck before we take it back," Meg said. It was the first morning in her new apartment, and we were unpacking groceries. Earlier, she'd given me a $100 bill and a shopping list and told me to take my time while she organized things. I set a bottle of wine onto the counter alongside Meg's black lacquer box. The little mirror was sitting on top of it. "Don't look so shocked," she said. "I like a wee bit of powder when I'm cleaning up around the house. But when the stash I took from Bobby is gone, that's it." I set out the pasta and the bread. "Sometimes I think it's a blessing not to be able to afford certain habits," I said. "It wouldn't matter," she said. "Even if you could afford it, you're just not wired for the kind of trouble that follows some people around." She opened the box and slipped the mirror back into its pocket. She lifted the bottle of wine, studying the label. "I know," she said. "We'll go to Storm King." "Storm King," I said. "Sounds ominous." "It does, doesn't it?" Her eyes sparkled. She rummaged through the moving boxes and pulled out a picnic basket. "It's named after a mountain peak with a mysterious power to predict the weather." She set the basket onto the counter and placed a wedge of cheese and the wine bottle inside it. "We'll commune with nature," she said. She opened her black lacquer box, pulled out a baggie of mushrooms, and waved them in front of me. "We'll contemplate life's meaning." Soon we were trundling along in the moving truck, Meg behind the wheel. Once we got out of the city, she pulled off at a small park. She divided the mushrooms into 2 equal parts. "I only want a little," I said. "You have most of them." 50-50, she said. "Don't worry, they'll help you see Jesus." I nibbled one of the stems and made a sour face. "It's better not to chew them," she said. She popped hers into her mouth and washed them down with a swig of wine. I did the same. The phone rang again. Another hang-up. The mist was growing brighter, but I still couldn't see a thing. A few days earlier, halfway down the grassy hillside at Storm King, Meg stopped and waited for me. "Lie down," she said. I sat, but she pushed me onto the grass, flat on my back. While I stared skyward, she bent down, unlaced my boots, and tossed them aside. Then she lay with her head resting between my ankles, as if I were standing on her shoulders. She grasped my feet, fingers folded over the dead, calloused skin. We waited as the mushrooms worked their magic, as the wind murmured to the trees. Somehow, in those few minutes, the weather had changed. We were still in the sun and the warmth, But in the distance, a majestic pageant of clouds had formed, giant thunderheads punching into the emptiness of the sky, giving it texture and portent. I imagined these same clouds floating here in the time of Leonardo or Homer or Moses. Maybe they were moving toward us, but we hadn't noticed it yet. Meg reached upward, her slender white arm cracking the blue of the sky, her fingertip touching all the way into the heavens, into the distant roiling clouds. "Virgo," she said, her breath a rainbow flowing from her lips. I could feel my own breath coming and going, the blood ebbing and flowing within me. "It's when the rain falls into another cloud and doesn't make it to the ground," she said. "While it's falling, it evaporates and gets lifted back up to where it began. You can't tell when it's above you. You can only see it from a distance." I was certain she was making all of this up. I saw Jesus tumbling through the clouds, ascending and descending, unable to come to earth, unable to ascend fully into heaven. But she knew, by saying the words in exactly the right way, like an incantation, she might make certain that the sun would always be shining, that rain would never fall on us, and that we could go on having experiences and living our lives forever. Her hands clasped my feet, thumbs pressed into my soles. "I've got to stay away from him," she said. The leaves stilled, the trees listening while she spoke. "But I need your help."
But I'm actually going to read today from something I haven't